And so let's get a sample of the mood amongst party delegates ahead of their leader's speech then. Sarah Houston is outside the conference hall for us in Birmingham. Sarah.
Yes, Anna, just under an hour to go until Nick Clegg makes that keynote speech closing this autumn conference for the Liberal Democrats. So what has the mood been like? What are delegates hoping to hear from the Liberal Democrat leader and Deputy Prime Minister? I'm joined by Cllr Paul Hodgkinson, who is one of the delegates here. It's been a terrible year for the Liberal Democrats, hasn't it, Paul, in terms of the defeat on the AV referendum, massive losses in the council elections, poll ratings at record lows. What's the mood been like?
Well, the mood's been good here, actually. It's a very professional conference. There's 8,000 delegates. But I do have to take you to task on saying it's been a terrible year, because in the Cotswolds, where I come from, we had the best result in the whole country. We gained lots of seats from the Conservatives by clearly differentiating ourselves on some key issues. So for us, it's actually been a really good year.
But I mean, you bucked the trend, didn't you? Because you lost some 600 seats in the council elections. Nick Clegg's popularity was at an all-time low. What's he got to do in this speech to rally the troops?
Well, we've got to stick to our guns on sticking with this for the long term, because we're in the coalition for the good of the country. So he's got to stick with that. But on the other hand, we do have to differentiate ourselves to some degree from the Conservatives on some of the issues of fairness, like the 50p tax rate, on fairness in the NHS by opposing some of the more radical reforms that the Conservatives are putting forward. And that's what we've got to do, is actually enthuse our base and the people out there who supported us last year on those issues of fairness and equality.
How do you think he manages, or will manage, to strike the balance between speaking as the Deputy Prime Minister and part of the coalition and speaking as the leader of the Liberal Democrats?
Well, as Deputy Prime Minister, he's got to hold the line in terms of deficit reduction. You know, that's really important for the country and for the economy. As a businessman, I see day to day when I'm talking to people in business that the country is suffering. We've got a massive deficit. We've got to sort that out. So from that perspective, he's got to do that. But in terms of the party as a whole, as I said before, he's got to remind us why we are Liberal Democrats. And we're Liberal Democrats because we want fairness, we want equality, and we want to make sure that everyone in society has got a fair chance, not just those at the top.
What have you made of the makeup of the delegates at this conference compared to previous conferences? Have you seen fewer students here? Because of course they are very angry with what he's done.
There's been quite a lot of students, actually, but I would describe it as the suited conference, because, you know, now we're in government and people take us much more seriously. You know, there's lots of lobbyists, there's lots of media, and there's lots of people in suits, and actually it's a much more professional environment. You know, it's just, there are thousands of people here. So it feels, you know, much more professional.
So the image of the socks and sandals or the students has changed.
I haven't seen a single sandal.
Right, okay. Now, in terms of conferences, who's had a good conference and who's had a bad conference, I mean, there's been controversy over Tim Farron's comments, hasn't there, over a potential divorce before 2015. What do you make of that?
I think he should have phrased it differently, because I think we all know that this is a fixed-term parliament. We're here with the Conservatives for 3.5 years. That's fair enough. We all accept that. But maybe to call it a divorce is a bit harsh. We'll have to see what the electorate does in 2015, because they're the boss, actually, and we have to wait for them to do that. In terms of a good conference, I actually think Nick Clegg's had a good conference.
We've heard quite a lot from him, haven't we, already, before this keynote speech?
Yes, we have. And he's risen to the occasion. He looks fresh. He doesn't look tired last year. He had a very tough year last year, but he looks fresh. He's convincing. He's influential, and he's here to stay.
People might have expected coming to this conference a very low mood, but as you say, you think Nick Clegg's looking fresh. What has changed for him over the summer?
I think the AV referendum was a bit of a watershed, actually, because it was very disappointing we lost it. But actually, in many ways, it's given him a new lease of life.
So is there a sense that actually it can't get any worse, it's all up from here?
I think it's already started coming up. You know, you mentioned the poll ratings. Actually, although they're less than they have been, they are up a bit. We've noticed around the country that we're winning council by-elections where we weren't previously. And I've seen a spring in the step of Nick, actually. So we've already hit the bottom, I believe. We're already coming back.
One of the proposals that Nick Clegg is going to discuss in his speech is some summer schools for potential troublemakers, for children to keep them occupied, to keep them in school during the summer holidays for a couple of weeks. Do you think that's going to work, or are the children that he's talking about really not going to engage?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, you have to think of different ideas, because just banging people up in jail doesn't necessarily solve the problem. We've heard that the jails can be schools of crime. So to actually think of something different, to have a summer school, I think is a good idea. It won't work for everyone. Tough sentencing for some people works, and more creative methods work for others. So I think we should look at everything. I think everything should be on the table to deal with this.
What's the message that you're going to take away from this conference, Paul?
The message I'm taking away to when I go back to the Cotswolds is actually, this is a professional party, we're serious about being in government, we're in for the long haul, and, you know, there are no ifs and buts about this. We're confident that we can make this work, and actually, all the doom mongers, you know, maybe people in the media who say that we won't do very well at the next election, I'm not convinced about that. I've got a good vibe, and in the Cotswolds certainly, we're very optimistic.
So the Lib Dems are in it for the long haul. What about your leader, Nick Clegg? Is he in it for the long haul?
Well, we believe he is. To my mind, he's the best person for the job, and I'd be disappointed if he wasn't, and everything I see suggests he will be there.
He will be there, so no jockeying for position that you've seen here?
No, I mean, you always get people who are ambitious. You have people in the cabinet who could easily step up to the mark, people like Vince Cable, Chris Hume, maybe even Tim Farron. These are all very good people. Actually, it's great to have a set of people who could take over as leader, but Nick's there.
Paul, you just mentioned Nick Clegg. He is arriving here at the ICC in Birmingham with his wife, Miriam, ahead of that keynote speech that he's going to be giving to the conference at 3 o'clock. He's going to say that there is a long, hard road ahead.